week I have Ignasi joining me in this podcast. We're co-hosting this, and we wanted to touch on the topic around corporate development. And Ignasi, you're a specialist in this area. But before we start talking about the topic, maybe you can introduce yourself and tell people who you are, what you do, and share some information about you.
Absolutely, and many thanks for having me here. It's fantastic to be here in Tucson. A little bit about me. So I'm from Barcelona. I did civil engineering by education, but I've never worked with a cap in my head. From early on, I realized that what I wanted was basically to bring to life new realities or disruptive ideas or innovate and make a real transformation in people's quality of life and society overall. So I started first as an advisor for a corporate for a big strategy consulting firm. I was working with several funds, several big corporates in really big corporate decisions such as M&A, such as deal, etc. And then I moved towards the more tech side. I became a corporate developer in one of the largest tech e-commerces here in Europe, which is eDreams. I was leading the hotel division for eDreams, which was more than 400,000 reservations a year. And now I'm studying the full-time MBA at IESE, just because I want to learn more about corporate development and nurture more of the knowledge that I have and try to, again, bring to life new realities, new ideas, help entrepreneurs to make that move and change from one thing that is something that is a reality.
Nice. So what I really like about you, we talked a bit before this, is that you are looking to continuously develop yourself, and I think that's a really great trait. Especially also with your next step you're going to take in the nearby future, actually next week. But tapping back to that corporate development, because that's also a little bit the thing we want to look at, how companies develop themselves. Because that's not an easy thing when you're a traditional company, a steel company. I'm not sure if the insurance space is really innovative, but you see that a lot of companies are struggling with that. From my experience, we chose M&A, buying companies, buying those innovation labs. But you know a lot about this topic. What is your take on that?
So corporations are a strange animal. As you say, a lot of them tend to focus on M&A just because they don't have the bandwidth or sometimes the bravery of trying on themselves. So you can see this in a lot of corporations. For example, you have some sales department that wants to innovate, wants to do things differently, but they have a sales target. They have to reach 10 million, 20 million, whatever. And they don't want to screw their target. They want to reach the forecast, etc., because bonuses are on the line. A lot of things are on the line. So they will not be as brave to try to change things. And basically, this is endangering and this is hampering the possibility of real change. For example, you can see that a lot of, for example, in my first part of my career when I was an advisor, we were going to corporates just because they wanted to do something different, but they needed the validation of someone coming from the outside. Someone saying like, yes, this can be a 10 million venture, this can be a 100 million venture. But they might have already the idea. They don't have the people, the resources, or even like the guts to pull this out.
I like the guts part.
No, it's true. It's true. It's continuously. You can see a lot of corporations that have great ideas. They have great R&D departments, and they're basically lying on a folder in some desk, and they don't touch it. And maybe there's the new Facebook in one of those folders, and no one knows because there's no enough appetite or it's not prioritized to do this innovation.
Yeah, I think the focus part and prioritization is really important one. What I remember from a program I did a few years ago, we had an interesting program around digitalization, which was confused with digital transformation, by the way. They're two different things. And the challenges we had were that there were a lot of ideas and concepts from the people, but they were not heard. So actually nothing flowed through towards actually changing perceptions. And because of that, people stopped doing that. People just stopped coming up with ideas because no one would pick it up anyway. And I think that's a big shame.
It is indeed. When I moved into the more corporate side, so when I moved into tech, we're having a lot of workshops, a lot of ideation. We call them war rooms, because basically it's like you get there 24 hours, 72 hours, whatever. You order some pizzas and you try to generate the new venture, and a lot of good ideas come out. But then it's the implementation. Is do we have the financing behind that we need? Do we have the buy-in from the C-level, for example, for the big executives to really pursue this idea? Is this in line with the current strategy? Can we fit it in? For example, there's an interesting element here that is the discovery-driven planning. I don't know if you've heard about this. It's basically running it backwards. Imagine that, for example, you have a corporation that is doing 100 million in revenue, and they want to increase by 10%. They want to do the 110 million. So then you say, like, okay, I need 10 million in revenue. What kind of venture do I need? And then you build up on that. So you start like, okay, I can start selling this new product. This new product is going to have this conversion, is going to have this customer lifetime value, etc. Blah blah blah. And then you're able to say, like, okay, realistically, can I make this 10 million extra that I need? If so, then you have a compelling argument to your big stakeholders, the executive, etc., to pursue it. But it's sometimes a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah. Well, this is the interesting part, because I was talking to someone last week regarding the startup mentality. There, you're looking at the dynamics of your solution into market, the drive to make it better and better, the drive to put it into market. But often they forget the financial side. They forget, how do I fund myself? A startup is always dying, he said to me. And Rahim, that's my vision. Every day, I know I'm a dying company. So I have to do everything in my power, and I need people in my organization who focus on not letting my company die, but focus also on making this dream work. From a corporate perspective, and this is actually a good point what you're putting in, it's a bit different. If we invest 1 million, we want to have 110, 120 back. If we don't, why should we invest? And it goes back to a story. At a time I worked for a US-based company, and we had a problem with a client. The product they delivered, the first version, did not suit the European market. So we got into trouble. It was a bit oversold. So we had to renegotiate with our organization in the US. And I talked to the chief product officer, and he said the same thing to me. He said, Rahim, you guys in Europe are so annoying. If I invest 1 million or 100 million in the US, I get 200 million back. You guys are asking me to invest 50 million, and if I'm lucky, if I'm going to get the money back, yeah, maybe on the long term, but not within the next 5 years. So why should I invest? There's maybe a bit of a different level from working for a corporate and working for a startup. But there are also other ways of innovating. You mentioned things like innovation labs and partnerships.
No, absolutely. So the traditional way, it has been like, if I cannot do it organically, I can do it through M&A. And you can see this a lot of times. You can see this in the more traditional big fish eating the little fish. You see some idea that it's there, and you inorganically start by acquisition, getting your holding bigger and bigger. But the innovation labs, for example, is something that it's being now, that it's much more and more interesting, which is basically, if the corporate has the muscle, has the resources, etc., and the startup or the scale up has the attitude, why not combine them? So basically, the
Yep.
idea is you try to find, there's for example, the last two companies that I've been working with, what they do is basically intermediate with this idea. No, it's setting up with the corporations the right startups, and you can do a lot of different partnerships together. It can be either through the form of corporate venture capital, meaning um, the corporation is the one financing different startups and financing different startups to get to the products that they're interested. Or you can do it, for example, in a more venture building style, meaning the corporation is helped by some other third party to generate new startups, because what you're looking there is to have less resources in terms of people, but also like less constraints, a blank canvas basically, with the muscle that you can have from a big corporation. So that is like the nice spot, and we're seeing. I would say that the majority of the big tech firms, for example, so big tech, but also like insurance companies, banks, all of those are doing it. They were first trying to have in-house R&D departments, and now they're saying like, no, I need to go big. I need to be investing big money because the change is now. Just let me give you a quick figure. In Fortune 500 companies, this time we're seeing a huge trend that it's going down the number of years that a Fortune 500 company is staying in the Fortune 500. So we're saying, yes, we have super big companies such as Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, etc. But the more and more companies are dying faster, and they are dying faster because innovation is eating up. It's so much faster than what they can do. So the big corporations, and we're going to see a surge in corporate venturing and corporate development in more this innovation style, because they need it. They need to be more like the startup itself.
But that's the difficult one again, because startup mentality is totally different. Corporates are trying that. From my experience, one of the clients I'm currently actually coaching is a corporate organization. More corporate in thinking. Actually, they're not so corporate because they're not that big, but they think they're really corporate, really still. And translating that into more startup thinking in where do I really invest? There's a lot of fear, and maybe it's also the COVID currently, the situation in the market. That's also, of course, playing, but there's a lot of fear of taking an educated risk or a non-educated risk in the market. And I'm wondering actually what that will mean in the months to come. We see the market picking up. I hope that the mentality will be picking up, but the market itself has a lot of fear. Within our network of executives, I think we now have 2,800 executives linked in the Barcelona region, about 400 or 500 people linked. When we talk together about what's happening within organizations, I see a lot of fear of making the wrong choice, or lost a lot of money. But that fear, if we don't overcome that fear, we're not going to get anywhere. What would be your suggestion if you come amongst one of the people in our network and they are struggling with where do I really invest? What are the actions they, for instance, could do to build up that mindset, to build up that confidence to actually start making choices?
That is a complicated one, but let me try to come up with a couple ideas here. First one, yes, it's a moment of fear. No one really well, now we're seeing much more the light at the end of the tunnel, but still, there's a lot of uncertainty in which kind of sectors are going to be booming, which kind of sectors are going to be falling behind. So there has to be still a lot of research. I'm much more inclined that, for example, in B2B, we're going to be seeing much faster recovery, and we're going to be much faster, more easily in shape, like we were back in 2019. For example, I've been looking at B2B software companies. Those ones are again back in shape. But what I would say is now it's the perfect time to look inward and think like, where do I want my company to be in 5 years' time? Where do I want my company to be in 10 years' time? And what is the exact path that I need to follow? And for example, it might not be M&A. It might not be purely thinking on acquiring companies that might have had a worse time during the pandemic, because there's a lot of the bullish mentality of a winner takes it all, and this is not always the case. Maybe it's not the right move to think like I can eat some of my competitors just because they might have had a worse time in pandemic, because maybe they're not a resilient company, or maybe it's not the right, or it's not going to be priced at the right price. So what I would strongly suggest is go to the drawing board, think on what do you want to be in 10 years time, and just write the roadmap. Think what kind of products are you going to be launching, even more philosophically, which kind of company do I want to be, what kind of customers do I want to have, and what is the added value that I'm bringing to the society overall. No, I don't know if this is too broad.
No, I actually like it. I actually like it. Some of these wordings I use within my clients, because we are missing we're not looking forward. We're looking too much backwards. And what I like about your answer is, look, you cannot envision where you're going to be in 10 years, but you can envision who you want to be. This is a takeaway I'm going to take from this part is, yes, do I know I'm going to be a 100 million company in 10 years? Is that my ambition? Yeah. Probably if that's your ambition, you're not going to make it, because it's a financial gain. But if you define in who you want to be as a company, it's a bit of a sidestep towards what you see lately is, organizations need to have the right values across the organization and build those values to enable innovation, to enable growth, to enable creative thinking and moving forward. It also requires an investment, because maybe you don't have the people, or maybe you can transform the people towards that direction. What does that mean in the next 5 years? What does it mean for your hiring policy? What does it mean for your structure of your organization? Is it still the right one? And that's why I like what you're saying around who do you actually want to be as a company? Not how much money you want to earn as a company, but who do you want to be as a company? What is the legacy you want to leave behind as a company, or as a person within the company, to get moving forward? So I really like the answer. We moved to Barcelona, I think about a year and a half ago, just before we had the first lockdowns here in Spain. And one thing I noticed in my sabbatical period was the high volume of venture capitalists building up startups where you could join and be the executive and build a fintech company, or this company and that company. It was actually a bit of a low key towards the end of the year, but I see a lot of advertisements popping up with those venture capitalists. If you look at a corporation, because we're now talking about an ex-corporation and a corporation, how could those venture capitalists support them? I think we didn't completely touch this topic in the beginning, but how would they be able to get that connection, maybe learn from them, maybe partner with them? Where would be the synergies between let's say, a corporate versus a venture capitalist, and how can they find synergies towards the future? Because maybe we could have a call to action on that topic to get those guys together.
That's an interesting one. When you think about it, there's a lot of movement, for example, in Barcelona, in the venture capitalist arena. There's a lot of small funds, a lot of people trying to generate the next unicorn. But it's super interesting. For example, let me give you an example. I was some time ago talking with a venture capitalist that had been investing in Verse, which is a payment peer-to-peer company, and I was asking, why is CaixaBank or any national bank not simply doing this? And they were saying like they can't. And I was like, okay, they clearly can, because it's not rocket science. And I was trying to push him there, and he was like, no, really, they cannot. They have sometimes these new startups are touching some niche markets, some segments that are not attainable by, or not reachable by the big corporations. Maybe it's because at the start margins are too thin. Maybe it's because customer acquisition is too high, etc. But they are touching different segments. And I was like, okay, so what is the end game? Is it the end game, for example, for a company like Verse to be acquired by some bank? And he said it might be. So there's clearly a link between big corporations and venture capitalists. Venture capitalists are going to be the ones nurturing and making the first progression of some of the early stage ventures, early stage startups, and then you're going to be seeing how corporations can either acquire them, or maybe they have already acted from the very first time. We're seeing more and more limited partners, which are the people financing the funds of the venture capitals, being big corporations, not only institutional investors such as big insurance companies or hedge funds, etc., but we are seeing big corporations because they want to have stakes on the startups. So the connection is going to be more and more and more. Corporate venture capital, it's here to stay, and corporations should be really thinking not as a threat, not like this startup is gonna eat my meal, but like, how can I connect early on with these guys so we can generate a better product, we can generate a better product market fit and go to market, etc. So we can foster together. So I think that I would really, really recommend early combination or really merge from the beginning. And we're seeing this, and it's continuing, and it's going to be like this for quite a long time, I think.
Well, I think it's really positive. I think that the concept we have as DNA is co-creative platform, where we co-create and co-work and connect people. That's something we see. You see all over the place. I think for a lot of people it can be difficult to find the right partner and the right connections, because there are so many good ones, but there are also so many bad ones to connect with. Yeah. So I wanna end up the podcast looking also a bit at the time. You have such an amazing knowledge on the topic of corporate development, on M&As, etc., etc. And I'm sure you're able and you're willing to share your knowledge with others. For instance, connecting to our DNA network. If people really want to connect with you, if they have questions, if they want to partner with you, how do they get in touch with you besides contacting us, but for instance directly?
I would be more than happy to help any single person, either from the corporate side or an entrepreneur that is trying to get his product or his idea to the market. And as I said, my motto here is I would say that I picture myself as a car engine. I like putting all the pieces together and making making the car go and explore like unpaved roads. So anyone that is interested in any of these topics and need any help can contact me through my LinkedIn. We can give them my email, which is ignasi.torguet@esa.net. Anything. I'm more than happy to help.
Perfect, group. Hey, Ignasi, thank you so much for doing this with us. This was a really excellent co-creation. I really loved the dynamic between us, but also the dynamic of the topic. Really, really good. I'm going to invite you after the summer when we can do the real events on site, because I think you are really someone who can add value and are adding value towards the community. So my thank you for that, for joining this podcast and co-hosting that with me.
Many thanks.